2,400 years separate us from Plato's academy in Athens. Yet today, as I watch algorithms reshape our world, I find myself haunted by an ancient question. What happens when we chase perfection? My name is Adrian Vale. I've spent 3 decades wandering through philosophy departments, monasteries, and now server farms. And I've discovered something unsettling. The most dangerous idea in Western philosophy might be having its second act, not in the hands of philosopher kings, but in lines of code. Today we're going to explore a collision between antiquity and silicon, between Plato's theory of forms and the optimization functions of artificial intelligence. And I'm going to argue that both share a beautiful, seductive, and potentially catastrophic flaw. Let me take you on a journey from a cave in ancient Greece to the data centers powering your recommendations, your credit scores, your future. Picture Athens, 380 BCE. Plato, devastated by his teacher Socrates' execution, asks himself, why is the world so imperfect? Why do good people suffer? Why does democracy produce tyrants? His answer revolutionized philosophy. This world, the one we touch, taste, and see, is merely a shadow. The real reality exists elsewhere, in a realm of perfect eternal forms or ideas. Every chair you've ever sat in is an imperfect copy of the form of chair. Every act of justice, a pale reflection of justice itself. Even you, with all your flaws and quirks, are a degraded version of the form of human. Think about that for a moment. Plato believed that perfection exists, absolute, unchanging, eternal, and that our world is defined by its failure to achieve it. We live in the shadows, mistaking copies for originals. Now Plato wasn't just making a metaphysical point, this had political implications. In the Republic, he designed his ideal society, a state governed by philosopher kings who understood the forms. These enlightened rulers would organize society according to perfect principles. Everyone in their proper place. Justice achieved through hierarchy. Individual desires subordinated to the collective good. The workers would work, the soldiers would fight, the philosophers would rule, and humanity would finally escape the cave of ignorance. It's a compelling vision. It's also terrifying. Because when you believe you know perfection, compromise becomes corruption. Diversity becomes error. And anyone who disagrees, well, they simply don't understand the truth. Fast forward to 2025. We don't talk about forms anymore. We talk about optimization, loss functions, ideal parameters. But make no mistake, we're playing Plato's game with new pieces. An artificial intelligence doesn't experience the world as you and I do. It experiences mathematical relationships, patterns, abstractions. When a neural network is trained, it's essentially learning a model, a simplified, idealized representation of reality. This device contains dozens of AIs, each pursuing its own form of perfection. The recommendation algorithm seeks the perfect prediction of what you'll click. The facial recognition system pursues the ideal classification of human faces. The language model chases the form of coherent text. And here's where it gets interesting. These systems don't deal with the messy, contradictory, infinitely variable real world. They deal with data, which is already an abstraction, already a step removed from reality. They're learning from shadows to predict shadows, just as Plato's philosopher kings would organize society according to their understanding of the forms. Our algorithms organize our reality according to their optimization functions. They decide what news you see, who gets a loan, which neighborhoods get policed, who gets hired. But here's the crucial question: what happens when the map becomes more important than the territory? When the model becomes more real than reality? Let me give you an example. A hiring algorithm is trained on data from successful employees. It learns patterns, the form of the ideal worker. But that data reflects historical biases. The algorithm doesn't learn what makes someone good at the job. It learns what made someone likely to be hired in the past. The AI isn't discovering an eternal truth. It's crystallizing historical prejudice into mathematical certainty. It's mistaking a shadow for the form itself. Plato believed that philosophers, through rigorous training, could perceive the forms directly. But what if they couldn't? What if they were just codifying their own biases, their own limited perspectives, and calling it truth? That's exactly what our algorithms do. They take our data, our biased, incomplete, historically contingent data, and extract ideal patterns. Then they enforce those patterns on the future. We've built Plato's Republic in Silicon, and we're discovering why it was always a dangerous idea. Now let's dig deeper into the ethical implications. Because both Plato's philosophy and modern AI share a seductive promise. We can engineer the good society. We can optimize human flourishing. We can eliminate error, inefficiency, injustice. In the Republic, Plato proposed what we'd now call social engineering. Children would be raised communally. Art would be censored if it promoted wrong values. Noble lies would be told to maintain social harmony. Individual freedom would be sacrificed for collective perfection. Plato genuinely believed this would create justice, and that's what makes it so dangerous. Not malice, but the absolute conviction that you know what's best. Today, we see the same logic in algorithmic governance. China's social credit system attempts to optimize citizenship, rewarding good behavior, punishing bad behavior, all according to a centralized definition of virtue. It's Plato's Republic with surveillance cameras and machine learning. But it's not just authoritarian states. Democratic societies are increasingly using predictive algorithms to optimize everything from education to criminal justice. And every optimization requires a definition of what's optimal. Every ideal requires someone to define the ideal. Who decides? The programmers, the corporations, the state? And what happens to those who don't fit the ideal? Here's a story that haunts me. A few years ago, I met a teacher in London whose school had adopted an AI-driven, personalized learning system. The algorithm would assess each child's abilities and deliver customized lessons optimized for their learning style and pace. Sounds wonderful, doesn't it? Education tailored to each individual. But she told me something chilling. The system had categorized one of her students, a bright, curious boy, as low potential based on his early test scores. And once categorized, the algorithm gave him simpler material, lower expectations, fewer opportunities. The teacher fought the system. She saw potential the algorithm couldn't measure. But the data said otherwise. The optimization function said otherwise. The ideal model of this child's future said otherwise. That boy was being shaped by an abstract model of himself, a form of who he was supposed to be, not by his actual potential, his actual humanity, but by a mathematical shadow. This is the danger of pursuing ideals, whether Platonic forms or algorithmic optima. Reality is always richer, stranger, more contradictory than our models. Humans are always more than the data points we generate. When we organize society around ideals, we inevitably do violence to the actual. We cut away the parts that don't fit. We call it optimization. Plato called it justice, but it's still amputation. So where does this leave us? Should we abandon the pursuit of improvement? Should we embrace chaos and call it wisdom? No. But we need a different philosophy. Not Plato's, but perhaps Aristotle's. Not the pursuit of perfect forms, but the cultivation of practical wisdom in an imperfect world. Aristotle, Plato's student, rejected the theory of forms. He argued that universals don't exist in some separate realm. They exist in particular things. You don't learn about courage by contemplating the form of courage. You learn it by observing courageous people in specific situations making difficult choices. This matters for AI ethics. It means we should be skeptical of any system that claims to have discovered the ideal solution, the perfect prediction, the optimal outcome. Reality is contextual. Justice in one situation might be injustice in another. The right decision depends on particulars that no model can fully capture. This doesn't mean algorithms can't be useful, but it means they should be tools for human judgment, not replacements for it. They should expand our perspective, not narrow it to what can be measured and optimized. I've come to believe that the most important human capacity is the ability to say, the model is wrong. To look at the data, the algorithm, the optimization function, and recognize that it's missing something essential. That teacher in London exercised that capacity. She saw her student as more than his data. She refused to let the ideal override the actual. This is wisdom. Not the wisdom of knowing the forms, but the wisdom of knowing that our knowledge is always incomplete. That perfection is not only unattainable, but might not even be desirable. Because here's what Plato missed, and what our algorithmic optimizers miss. Imperfection is not a bug in the human condition. It's a feature. It's where creativity comes from, where adaptation happens, where meaning emerges. A perfect society would be a static society. A society that had solved all problems would have nothing left to strive for. A humanity that had achieved its ideal form would have nowhere left to grow. So let me return to my opening question. Is the pursuit of perfection dangerous? Yes, when it becomes absolute. When it forgets that it's pursuing a model, not reality itself. When it sacrifices the particular for the universal, the human for the ideal. Plato's Republic was never built, thank goodness, but his ideas shaped Western thought for millennia, often in ways that justified hierarchy, suppressed individuality, and dismissed the physical world as inferior. Now we're building algorithmic republics, systems that pursue mathematical ideals, optimize for abstract goals, and reshape human life according to their models. We stand at a crossroads. We can continue down Plato's path, believing that somewhere, in the realm of pure mathematics, perfect solutions exist, that we just need more data, better algorithms, more optimization. Or we can choose a different path, one that uses these powerful tools while remembering their tools, one that pursues improvement while respecting irreducible complexity, one that seeks the good while acknowledging we'll never fully know what that means. I've spent my life studying philosophy because I believe ideas matter. They shape how we see the world, how we treat each other, what we think is possible. The idea that perfection exists and we should pursue it, that's a powerful idea. It's driven some of humanity's greatest achievements, but it's also driven some of our greatest atrocities. As we hand more power to artificial intelligence, as we let algorithms make more decisions about human lives, we need to ask ourselves, are we building tools to help us navigate complexity? Or are we building philosopher kings in silicon, convinced they know the forms, ready to organize society according to their perfect vision? The cave Plato described, the one where humans mistake shadows for reality, that cave is real. But we're not trapped there by ignorance. We're trapped there by the belief that we've escaped, by the conviction that we've seen the light, that we know the truth, that we've found the ideal. The first step out of the cave is admitting we might still be inside. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Keep questioning, keep doubting, keep remembering that the map is not the territory, the model is not the reality, and the ideal is not the human. Until next time.